إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا ونبينا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد صلاة دائمة مقبولة تعدي بها الحق العظيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون صدق الله مولانا العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الأمين المكين الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين غوث اعظم بمنے بے سر و ساما مدد قبلہ دی مدد کعبہ ایما مدد قادری امن عرائے یا غوث اعظم میزنم دمز شیخ احمد رضا خان قطب عالم میزنم سیدی یا مرشدی شاہ مصطفیٰ خان زندہ باد مسلک سرکار اعلیٰ حضرت زندہ باد یا الہی مسلک احمد رضا خان زندہ باد حفظ ناموں سے رسالت کا جو ذمہ دار ہے سیدی یا مرشدی شاہ مصطفیٰ خان زندہ باد حامل فیض رضائے مصطفیٰ امداد کن صلی اللہ علی النبی الامی وآلہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم صلاة و سلام علیک یا سیدی یا سندی یا حبیبی یا طبیبی یا رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم وعلی آلک و اصحابک یا رحمت للعالمین. All praises due to Almighty Allah. Durood and salams upon the most perfect, exalted and glorified of Allah's creation, Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. His blessings, salutations upon the Anbiya Ikram, Ahl Bayt Athhar, Sahaba Ikram, Khulafa Rashideen, Tabain, Tabi Tabain, Aimma Mujtahideen, Awliya Kamilin, and all those who follow the path until the last day. We thank Almighty Allah for His infinite mercy and the wasila of Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, for blessing us with the opportunity to congregate for Salatul JUMMAH and to prostrate in His most exalted court. Before continuing, let us all direct our hearts and our thoughts and our minds towards the holy and the sanctified court of the beloved Rasool sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and in doing so let us all collectively recite the Durood Sharif. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyana Mawlana Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammadin salatan daimatan maqbulatan tu'addi biha anna haqqahu al-azim. I'm generally late on a Friday. I take more of your time usually than normal. I better remind Afthab that they need to check that watch is 10 minutes early. That is showing after 25 past 12. If I look at that one, I'm going to finish at 1:15. Durood Sharif. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyana wa Mawlana Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammadin wa ashabihi wa barik wa sallim salatan wa salamun alayka ya Sayyidi ya Habibi ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alika wa ashabika ya rahmatan lil alamin. One of the most precious and valuable things that man has, without which he cannot do anything, and if in this sense we will call it the most precious, worldly or dunyawi amana that he has, without which he cannot do anything. He cannot live a day, he cannot live a minute, is his life. Zindagi. This life is a great ni'mat of Allah. Obviously greater than this and everything else is your iman. But in the physical sense, the most important thing is a man's zindagi. And that is why we are commanded to always do what is best within our capacity to protect our lives, within the limitations. But if a person has the best of everything, he will sacrifice everything else before he sacrifices his life. It's human fitrat. It is our nature that we will sacrifice everything before we sacrifice our lives. But we see in the dunya today that in order to protect our wealth, we give our lives. In order to protect something else, people give their lives. But they're not willing to sacrifice that life and that time and every other thing for the pleasure of Allah and His beloved Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Okay? So this life is very valuable in the real sense. But the true value of life is when this life is used for its true purpose. The great and the beloved servants of Allah, the Sufiyan-i-Kiram, the Awliya-i-Kiram, the beloved servants of Allah are those who understood the true value of this life which Allah has given us. They have understood why it has been given to us and what is the purpose of this life. And thus you will find that they do not waste a single moment in their lives. All their life, whether they walk, whether they sit, whether they talk, even if they transact, everything is in the shade of the command of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because they understand that there is one day going to come which we sometimes forget about, and it is called the day of recompense, the day of accountability, when we will stand in the court of Allah and be accountable for our life's deeds. And thus, on that day, man will realize how valuable the life was on the dunya. If you spend this life for the pleasure of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then on that day you will regard the value of that life. That by the mercy of Allah, all those actions that you did, Allah will not forsake you for them, if they were done for the pleasure of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-bir la yabla wa dham la yunsa wa dayanu la yamut. Yam'al ma shi'ta kama tadinu tudan. Okay, very clear. I've mentioned this many times. That your good deeds will not be perished. And your sins will not be forgotten. And the one who rewards or recompenses does not die. Allah. Al-bir la yabla wa dham la yunsa wa dayanu la yamut. I'mal ma shi'ta kama tadinu tudan. Do as you want. You will sow whatever you reap. You will reap whatever you sow. What you did here is what you're going to get there. If a person wasted his entire life, then he will realize how valuable this life was. That he should have spent it in the ibadat of Allah, should have spent it on the musalla. How valuable everything was that Allah gave him with this life, your wealth, your power. Everything, if you spend for the pleasure of Allah, with a pure intention, it will benefit you on that day, by the grace of Allah. And that person who wasted his dunya on that day, what is going to say? How I wish I could have gone back to the dunya. How I wish I could have lived another 5 or 10 years more. But it is too late. It is too late. That time has gone. The beloved servants of Allah, and today the sad part about everything is that we are willing to sacrifice everything for this dunya. Tajushariah says, indeed it's true. He says, Na samajh marte hai zindagi ke liye. The foolish people are dying for this world, when jeena marna hai sab kuch Nabi ke liye. When your life and your death in reality is all for the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But we run behind the dunya so much. We're willing to sacrifice our deen, we are willing to sacrifice our everything, compromise everything. But we're not willing to leave that which is harmful to the deen of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The reason I've started on this discussion, and I'm going to be brief and complete on time, inshallah. Hausul Waqt Huzure Sayyidi Sarkare Mufti Azam Hind radiyallahu ta'ala an says something very beautifully. I want you to pay attention and I want you to listen with your heart what he says. He says in one couplet, Ye ek jaan kya hai? Now this is a very long discussion. a few Fridays if I do continue, maybe more. ये एक जान क्या है अगर हो करोड़ों. ये एक जान क्या है अगर हो करोड़ों, तेरे नाम पर सबको वारा करूं मैं. The 14th eve of the 14th of this month, Muharram, marked the Urs of Huzur Mufti Azam in the field. He says, ये एक जान क्या है अगर हो करोड़ों, तेरे नाम पर सबको वारा करूं मैं. And if we translate this into English in a poetic style, what is this one life? If billions of lives I had, O my beloved. What is this one life? If billions of lives I had, O my beloved, upon your sacred name, all of them, I will sacrifice my beloved. What is this one life? Huzur Mufti Azam is saying, ये एक जान क्या है अगर हो करोड़ों, तेरे नाम पर सबको वारा करूं मैं. We are talking about one life that we can't sacrifice time for. In this life we can't sacrifice time to read one salah sometimes, because shaitan has trapped us in the dunya. We can't sacrifice time to go visit our parents. We can't sacrifice time to go to the graves of our deceased. We can't sacrifice time to educate our family members. We can't sacrifice time to sit down for a few moments and turn our hearts towards Medina Sharif and send durood in the court of the beloved Rasool'Allah. And here Huzur Mufti Azam is teaching us a great lesson about life in one poetic stanza. He says, ye ek jaan kya hai? What's this one life? Had I to sacrifice it? What is this one life? If I had billions of lives, karoro, not a million, billions of lives, upon your name I would have sacrificed everything. Ya Rasool'Allah, leave alone sacrificing upon you. Upon the name Muhammad I would sacrifice everything. Upon your name I would sacrifice everything. Now to better understand what Huzur Mufti Azam said, let's go into the past a little bit. Huzur Mufti Azam says, ye ek jaan kya hai agar ho karoro, tere naam par sabko wara karu main. When Huzur Mufti Azam was a little child, AALA HAZRAT Azimul Barakat was in the Masjid in Bareilly Sharif. I'm being brief. We heard this before. His father, Huzur Mufti Azam's father was who? Imam Ahl Sunnat Sayyidi AALA HAZRAT Azimul Barakat radiyallahu anhu. He was in the masjid one day and a majzoob, a pious personality who is in a state of spiritual ecstasy, comes to him and he says, I'm being brief, I am able to see the authority and the control of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the earth, but it is not visible to me in the heavens, in the skies. AALA HAZRAT Azimul Barakat radiyallahu anhu gently explains that like it is on the earth, it is also in the heavens. The beloved Rasul has been given this authority and this power in the court of Allah. So the majzoob, because he is in a state of ecstasy and spiritual ecstasy, he is in a very absorbed state. They sometimes speak in riddles. But who better understood those riddles, spiritual riddles, than Imam Ahl Sunnah? But because his apparent words were saying that I can see here, I cannot see it there, AALA HAZRAT Azimul Barakat said, look, whether you can see it or not, it is here and it is there also. He said, but I cannot see it. AALA HAZRAT Azimul Barakat radiyallahu anhu got jalal. And he said, like it is here, it is there also. If you can't see it, it's the weakness of your vision. But it is there. The beloved Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's authority, like it is in the sky, earth, it is in the sky also. That's a majzoob. He's in a state, in an absorbed spiritual state. He also became jalal. He says, go, I have dropped you. When Sayyidi AALA HAZRAT Azimul Barakat radiyallahu anhu goes to his house, his beloved mother, as he enters the door, she says, oh Amman Mia, she used to call him that out of love, you should know better than to have arguments and debates with majzoobs. Mother is not there. Mother is not in the masjid. But the moment he enters the door, she says, "Ma, ho to aise." This is wilayat. This is spiritual foresight. She says that you should know better than to have any debate and argument with them. You know their state is different. Ala Hazrat Azimul Barakat radiyallahu anhu says, "What happened? Oh my beloved, what happened?" She said, "Mustafa Raza, Sarkar Mufti Azam Chote Miyan was very small, little boy, was playing on the upper section of the house on the roof's top, and he has fallen from the top. What did the Mansub say? Go, I have dropped him." State of spiritual ecstasy. Huzur Hazrat goes to the little Imam Mustafa Raza Khan radiyallahu anhu, and he looks at him and he says he's okay. His mother says, "But look what could have happened." He says to his beloved mother, "This is one Mustafa Raza. This is one Mustafa Raza. If I had 1,000 like this, I would sacrifice all of them upon Raza and Mustafa. This is one. This is one. If there were 1,000 like this, I would sacrifice them in the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I am not willing to hear a single word from anyone's mouth when it comes to the shan of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam being lowered more than it is, intentionally or unintentionally." Here Allah Hazrat is saying, if I had thousands of lives, I would sacrifice all of them. If I had 1,000 Mustafa Razas like this, I would sacrifice all of them upon Raza Mustafa, upon the pleasure of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that Imam Mustafa Raza grows up to say, "Ye ek jaan kya hai? What is this one life? My father finished sacrificing me. My father already sacrificed me in the love of Muhammadur Rasulullah. And if he had 1,000 like me, he would have sacrificed 1,000 like me." He says, "Ye ek jaan kya hai? What is this one life? Agar ho karoro. Tere naam par sabko wara karu mein, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." But in brief, when sometime topic is going to go a little bit far and wide, but quickly. When Ala Hazrat Azimul Barakat, after some time, that Medzub came in the court of Ala Hazrat again, and he met, and he looks at Ala Hazrat and said, "You were right. Ahmad Raza, you were right, you won." Ala Hazrat says, Azimul Barakat says, "What do you mean?" He says, our case was presented in the spiritual court of Sultanul Hind Khaja Gharibun Nawaz radiyallahu anhu. And Khaja Gharibun Nawaz radiyallahu anhu gave the judgment in your favor. He gave the judgment in your favor. And he said, "Oh Ahmad Raza, because of you, like how I see the authority of the Nabi on the earth, I now see it in the skies also." Okay? So Imam Ahmad Raza is Ala Hazrat because he has the support of Sultanul Hind Khaja Gharibun Nawaz radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So Huzur Mufti Azam says, "Ek jaan kya hai? Agar ho karoro, tere naam par sabko wara karu main." Where did they learn this? He learnt it from his father. Where did he learn it? He learnt it from his Murshid-e-Kamil. Where did they learn it? They learnt it from the court of the beloveds of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Go back and see when Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala an, when Hazrat Maula Ali radiallahu an taught us a lesson, that whatever it is, be willing to sacrifice in the court of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah's mercy will descend in abundance upon you. In the place of Sahaba, at Maqam Sahaba, when Maula Ali radiallahu an sacrificed his Asr Salah, he sacrificed namaz, his Asr Salah, because the beloved Rasul was resting on his lap. One side is the command of Allah, perform Salah, Aqim Salah, perform your Salah. And that too, the protector of Salah, Hafiz Salah, the protector, the middle Salah. Ala Hazrat Azimul Barakat radiyallahu anhu taught us this in his work, that at that time, Maula Ali radiallahu anhu knew namaz is fard, but he knew the greatest fard is to value that person who brought this namaz to us. The beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't move. And when the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam rose from his rest, he said, "Ya Rasulullah, my namaz is gone." Nabi said, didn't say, "Ali, I'm just like you. Ali, I'm just like you. I can't do anything." The Nabi said, "Ali, you are worried that your salah went. I am Nabi, let me show you how I bring the sun back." He brought the sun back. And the beloved Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's beloved Ali radiallahu anh read his salah at that time. And at AALA HAZRAT Azimul Barakat radiyallahu anh says, Mawla Ali ne wari, teri neend par namaz. Sacrifice. Mawla Ali ne wari, teri neend par namaz. और वो भी असर सबसे जो आला खतर की है, और वो भी असर सबसे जो आला खतर की है. Upon your blessed rest, his namaz Mawla Ali sacrificed. Ya Rasulullah, upon your blessed rest, his namaz Mawla Ali sacrificed. And that too, the asr namaz, which is the most revered. Now look, what did Huzur Mufti Azam say? Ye ek jaan kya hai? Ye ek jaan kya hai? What word did he use? Agar ho karoro tere naam par sabko wara. And what did Sarkar Ala Hazrat says? Mawla Ali ne wari. Teri neend par namaz. वो भी नमाज असर जो सबसे आला खतर की है. And subhanallah, and then he says after that what? He said one side you look at Mawla Ali sacrificing his salah, but at that time don't forget when Siddiq Akbar was willing to sacrifice his life. Don't forget at that time in the cave when he allowed himself to be bitten by the snake, but didn't want any taklif to come to Rasulullah. Mawla Ali Nawari, teri neend par namaz, और वो भी असर सबसे जो आला खतर की है. और सिद्दीक अकबर के जान गार में जान उस पे दे चुके, सिद्दीक अकबर के गार में जान उस पे दे चुके, और हिफ्ज़ जान तो जाने फुरूज़े गुरर की है. आला हज़रत अज़ीमुल बरकत says, upon him sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the cave, his life Siddiq in fact sacrificed. Upon him sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the cave, his life Siddiq in fact sacrificed. Whereas one's greatest duty is to make sure his life is protected. Hazrat Siddiq Akbar gave that, even was willing to give his life at that time. What the Allah Hazrat says, तूने उनको जान उन्हें फेर दी नमाज. तूने उनको जान उन्हें फेर दी नमाज, पर वो तो कर चुके थे जो करनी बशर को है. साबित हुआ कि जुमला फराइज फ्रू है. साबित हुआ कि जुमला फराइज फ्रू है. असलुल उसूल बंदगी उस ताजवर की है. Okay? It has been proven that all obligations are secondary and subjected. It has been proven that all obligations are secondary and subjected. The fundamental principle is to serve the king completely devoted. साबित हुआ कि जुमला फराइज फ्रू है. असलुल उसूल बंदगी उस ताजवर की है. ये एक जान क्या है? एक जान क्या है? अगर हो करोड़ों तेरे नाम पर सबको वारा करूं. I would sacrifice everything. This is what the beloveds taught us. And Huzur Tajushariah radiyallahu anh says, you must understand why this is the so. Why is this the case? That you can sacrifice your life, thousands of life, millions of life, billions of life on Rasul Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why is an ashik prepared to do that? Ja tui jana karare ja tu. Ja tui jana karare ja tui. जाने जान जाने तमन्ना जाने मसीहा आप है. या रसूलल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम, oh my beloved, you are the soul and the relief of every soul. Ya Rasulullah, you are the soul and the relief of every soul. The soul of the soul, the soul of the Messiah. Ya Rasulullah, you are. That is why to sacrifice everything upon you is what gives you a life that is more beautiful in the hereafter. And that is why Hazrat Jamil Qaadiri radiyallahu anh said, falak pe arsh pe jannat mein tera isme sharif. फलक पे अर्श पे जन्नत में तेरा इस्म शरीफ खुदा ने नाम से अपने लिखा मिलाए हुए. Wherever you look, with his name Allah has written your name, O beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is why Mufti Azam says, ये एक जान क्या है? What is this one life? अगर हो करोड़ों तेरे नाम पर सबको वारा करूं मैं. The Sahaba Ikram, their entire lives, they were willing to sacrifice their lives for the love of the beloved Rasul, for sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for love of the Ahlul Bayt of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And on the plains of Karbala, the Ahlul Bayt sacrificed their lives for the pleasure of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for the protection of the Deen of Almighty Allah. They would say, the companions used to say, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, fidaka abi wa ummi. Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may my mother and father be sacrificed for you. May our parents be sacrificed for you. The beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being said, may our parents be sacrificed for you. Why are they saying this? Because this was the manner of the Arabs, that when they love somebody very much, and when they wanted to say that we want to do anything that you say, they would say, may our parents be sacrificed at you. In other words, out of happiness for what the person was doing, out of muhabbat, they would say this in the court of Rasulullah Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People say, but how can you say that? May my parents be sacrificed upon you. You can't just say sacrifice, tell this word in front of anybody. Let me tell you, these words came out from the blessed mouth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These words came out of the blessed mouth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. Why? It is mentioned when during the battle of Uhud, when the battle was at its climax, HAZRAT Sayyidina Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu, the Sahabi of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was firing arrows at the kuffar Makkah, and the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood by him and he said, Sa'ad, fire arrows. Sa'ad, fire arrows. Fidaka abi wa ummi. May my parents be sacrificed upon you. Allahu Akbar. Rasul Pak is saying. That is why Mawla Ali radiallahu anhu says that I heard Allah's Nabi saying, Bukhari, this hadith is in Bukhari. I heard Allah's Nabi saying, oh Saad, fire the arrows. Let my parents be sacrificed upon you. Mawla Ali says, I never heard the Nabi say this word for anybody else after he said for Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu. What is this teaching us? What is this teaching us? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this out of love. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this because Rasul Pak was so pleased with the defending that he was doing for the deen of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But in reality, he was doing it because he was doing it in the love of Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alaihi wasallam. So the Sahaba Ikram knew that whatever you do, it must be done for the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if you do this, then it is for the pleasure of Almighty Allah. And if you do whatever you do, and there is no ishq of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in it, there is no benefit in that there. So you should bear in mind that when Hudure Mufti Azam Hind radiyallahu anh said, ये एक जान क्या है अगर हो करोड़ों तेरे नाम पर सबको वारा करूं मैं, they gave us a message, and this is the message of Karbala. This is the message of Imam Hussain. This is not the message of the Razvis. This is not the message of the mouthpiece of the Razvis. The message of Imam Hussain and all the awliya and all the beloveds is that sacrifice for the pleasure of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And which kind of a sacrifice? That sacrifice which is in the love of Allah's Nabi. That sacrifice which is in the love of the beloveds of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you do this, your dunya is made and your akhirat is made as well. We must always remember that whatever you do it for the pleasure of Allah. And you'll just say, but Maulana, just now you said do it for Rasulullah. You cannot do in the court of Allah without doing for Rasulullah. You say, but namaz is for Allah. Indeed, namaz is not for anybody else. You cannot need namaz for anybody else. Namaz is ibadat. Ibadat is only for Allah. But the tawfiq you got to stand and say Allahu Akbar is because the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought this gift to you. Okay? This is the blessing of the beloved Rasul, that Allah gave us namaz through him when he went on the eve of Mi'raj. This was the gift to us. So think about it. That is why Huzur Mufti Azamin, the great Imam of his time, is teaching us that don't look at your life, don't look at all these things when it comes to Allah's Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The life that you gave, and whatever you did in your life, whatever you spent in your life for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is for Allah. And whatever you sincerely do for Allah, if it is without Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is no benefit in it. Allah give us the tawfiq to understand. Allah keep us with iman. Let us leave this world with iman. Those who are ill in our community, Allah grant them shifa, kamil, sehat, ajil. Those that have passed away, Allah exalt them in Jannat al-Na'im. We make dua for all those that are going through any difficulty and calamity. Allah remove them from the difficulties and the calamities. Many people have mentioned and asked for dua. I cannot remember all of them. I'm mentioning all of them. That whoever said to me by name, may Allah bless them and have mercy upon them. Allah keep us firm on mazhab muazzam, mazhab ahl sunnat al jamaat. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us misdaq of ye ek jaan kya hai agar ho karoro tere naam par sabko wara karu mein. Hamaare balagh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.